Very good evening, friends. Today, I would like to share with you my sensitivity towards the poor, the lonely, and the helpless that I have learned to cultivate and propagate through my study, rather very close study of a very beautiful short story, an absorbing short story written by Anton Chekhov, one of the greatest Russian writers of all time. This short story comes from a person who later, through education, became a doctor in his life, but in the childhood had a very unpleasant sort of time. His ancestors were serfs, and therefore he very easily understood the brunt and the harshness of poverty, neglect, and hatred. Anton Chekhov is known as a writer using laconic style in writing. He makes use of words very cleverly, very judiciously, and he is very economic in terms of the expenditure of words for the creation of his stories and also dramas. His dramas are written in connection with the life that is not lived yet or outlived, and his short stories are very deeply reflective of social realism and social discrimination, particularly against the poor. My emphasis is on this, that human beings have to live like human beings. You can't be arrogant because you have very unfairly earned so much that you don't have an account of. You can't be arrogant because you have been voted to power. You can't be rude and crude to the people who abide by laws. In my experience, those people who are in power of politics or money, they are the worst people. And even those people who, because of poverty or because of neglect or because of humiliation, take to arms or take to crimes and perpetrate their atrocities only on the lower middle class people who are generally very laborious, very hardworking, and honest also. They want to improve the conditions of their life through their work, through their devotion to their duty, and also through their faith in one kind of power of the spirit, heaven, or the other kind. All around the world, I see this thing happening now, that people who are powerful and wealthy, they trade upon the the people who are good, gentle. That is my idea. Means you have only 1 acre of land and you have cultivated 2, 3 crops within that area and you want to protect it. You want to have the fruits returned to you of your labor. But the so-called poor people, thievish people, bad people, they are they are extremely envious of you. And then they get everything destroyed by letting their animals in your cultivated piece of land, plot of land, which you can't defend in the night. And these bad people, antisocials, they are there to destroy your dream. And you know, in present day politics, these so-called people, they are called the downtrodden, but they are not. They are called the poor people, but they are not. They only are antisocials. And they they can't go against the powerful and moneyed people. So they destroy the peace and harmony and civility of the middle class people who are not arrogant, because not that they don't have money, but because by nature they are the believers in live and let live. So Anton Chekhov, from my point of view, as far as I have been able to understand him, he always wanted society to be good, to be sympathetic to one another in terms of people from different backgrounds, different social strata. They should live humanly. If some of them are resourced or resourceful, they should use their resources in such a manner that they enjoy their lives, and in also a manner that makes other people's life easy who don't have resources. If people are poor, very poor, they should be honest, hardworking as much as possible. They should try to move up by being polite, by being honest, but not by being violent and murderous. They should not take easy targets of the middle class people who are neither violent generally nor arrogant, because they are the base of society. Anton Chekhov, when he became a doctor, he had to come in contact with the people. And because he had his ancestry in serfs or serfdom, so he had in his blood the feel of the suffering of people who are bonded laborers, or even middle class people who are innocently, suppose you can say, defensive. They know that they are being attacked, even then they keep to defense. They don't counter. They don't counter violence through violence, but they tolerate. So Anton Chekhov was sympathetic to both the downtrodden, really downtrodden, those who suffered from poverty and prayed to God that their poverty comes to an end. But they never took arms, they never ill treated others, they never uh, made life hellish for others. And even, I don't say that all the powerful people, all the wealthy people, they are bad. 5 to 10% of them, they are good. They make use of their surplus money, surplus resources for the welfare of those who are have-nots. So now, with this background, I would like my listeners, my dear friends, my respected listeners, I should say, I love you all, I respect you all, that you may have read this story, you may not have. Even if you have read, I and you can consolidate our resolution on how to be good. If we are good, how to be better towards our duty and towards our resolution to make our life good and other people's life also good. If you have not read, then you should listen to what I'm going to say very nicely, very carefully, and I'm sure you would have entertainment of listening, entertainment of grasping, and also the benefit of having a good feel for life, having a good turn in terms of experience of life. Now, the story, the grief, uh, is is given a character in the lead, and this character is an old man, almost 80 years old, or very old, you can say, and he is a cab driver. This cab driver was all humble, all honest. He would be pleased with the money he would earn in a day by taking wayfarers from one part of the city of Moscow to the other, or to all the parts if he got wayfarers. And He didn't have a large family. He had only a daughter who had been married off and a son, Mr. Barin, and he was only 16, 17 years old in his mid teens. So this old man always worked with this hope that in his old age, when he would retire from cabmanship or working as a cabman, this son of his would take care of his occupation. He would earn money, he would take care of the family, his own family, and also his father. Mr. Barin, however, was not destined to live. He was growing up only. He was only midway through the teenage and perhaps waiting for his entrance into adulthood and to have a good life, making a family, taking care of his father, but that was not to be. So Barin died of a mysterious fever, high fever, as he understood. His father, the cab driver, understood. And that was a tragic incident, immeasurable in terms of suffocation, agony that the cab driver of Moscow might have gone through. After that tragic incident, he would be coming onto the routes, taking wayfarers from one place to another because he could not afford to sit back and ponder over the reasons of his young son's death, or just to be weeping and spending time. He had to eat, he had to feed his horse, so he had to work. And he did that. He came out and he got back to business. But there was one fever that made him suffer a lot. And the fever was that he should find someone, some people with whom he could share the tragic death of his son. And he should be given an opportunity to indulge within quotes, telling people how his son was, how promising he had been, and how he died so soon. He wanted someone, he wanted some people to share, to stay up with him and to go through his version of uh, what his son was to him, how he lived, how he got into that sort of fever, and how he died. But in that great city of Moscow, there was none who had time to listen to this cab driver, impatient to release the crushing energy that was getting pent up within him, that should be spent through this cabman telling his heart out. So that was not happening. So that is a big question on the humanity, that cities are supposed to be inhabited by cultivated people, educated people, professionals, people who are better through education. But see the irony of the city life. Here, everybody is on the flee, everybody is on the run, everybody is in scarcity of time. Nobody has time to listen to one another. It is said that at that time, the Moscow city, as now everywhere in the world, people living under the same roof, people living in the same society, housing society, and uh, they don't have any introduction. Also, most of them, they don't have mutual introduction. They don't know one another, let alone intimacy. Even people living in adjacent flats, flat number 11, flat number 12, flat number 16, flat number 17, they get into the holes of their flats after they come back from the job, and they remain set in. When they come out, then many of them are sensitive. They first ensure that the neighboring door is not rattling, not giving any signal of any person coming in or going out. Then the inmates of this flat or one person, whoever resides, comes out so that nobody sees him getting down the stairs, or nobody, you can ask him how he spent his time, where did he work, and all that. This is the situation, and very terrible situation. Man has lost all sense of humanity. They love sometimes their pets, or they seem to be loving, but they don't have real love even for their pets. They only pretend to be loving, spending some time, passing time. Loneliness and hypocrisy interconnected. Those people who are really lonely, they suffer. And those who are not really lonely, but they make themselves lonely, pretending that they are very happy, they live in a community, they have friendship, they have camaraderie. But the fact is that everybody is living a life of hypocrisy, not speaking the truth of life, not speaking the reality, not sharing, only pretending. Pretending to be a good friend, pretending to be a good husband, pretending to be a good brother, pretending to be a good neighbor. But most of us, we are not. We are in a vicious circle. We are in a vicious circle of what one could call crisis of identity. And this crisis does not get any diminished or any reduced. It goes on, it increases leaps and bounds by every passing day. So the story has a very nice plot, and the plot is not crowded with characters. One person is speaking his heart out, sharing his perceptions with the readers, that he happens to ask somebody that, please listen. And he says, are you mad? Don't you have any time that you ask me what time it is? Because every time he would ask someone, this cab driver, what is the time? He wanted this question to be an opener, so that the other person, the one he asked of, he would respond, what is this time? And then he would say, I am such a person, or I am this person, this is my occupation, and all that. But nobody ever stops and responds to his query what time it is properly. So he doesn't get anyone. And he's so much frustrated, so much in deep grief. So grief is a story of the reflection of the grief in the heart of this old cab driver. And grief also is a suitable title to this story because the death of a young son has caused grief. And this grief is not only physical, it's mental. It's both, but it's more mental and physical, because if mentally you are sick, physically also you can't be all right. You have some problem or the other. If physically you are not all right, mentally you can't be balanced. You can't think, you can't sing. If a person has a headache, he can't sing. Once the headache is over, he can sing. So this grief has two dimensions. One is the tragic death of a young person, young son, and the other factor that has added to the grief of this old man is this realization that in this crowded world, in this crowded city of Moscow, how miserable life people are living, that nobody has time even to respond properly what time it is posed by this cab driver. So he's doubly grieved. He has lost his son, and another is that he finds all people, almost everybody, insensitive, almost everybody crude, almost everybody selfish. And that is what makes this story all the more readable. And the language used by Anton Chekhov is so situational, so conversational, that it doesn't pose any problem even to those whose vocabulary is limited, or who is not given to much reading, because it's a short story. So finally, what happens? This old man comes back to his stable, where so many cab drivers live, in a dormitory or in a place like that, where you have a room and two, three people, or you have a large room, you have 50, 55 cab drivers, they sleep, they spend their time there. So he doesn't get sleep. He doesn't have any rest of mind. He feels that he should rather continue talking to himself even when he's not on the road in search of someone who could respond to his query, what time it is, or to his asking, what time it is, what time. So that way he goes on. Then finally, and a hint comes to him that he is the master of the horse, and he, you can say, drives the cab. He takes the wayfarers from one place to another in the city of Moscow. He earns some money to feed himself, to earn bread for himself, but also to earn money to feed his horse, to have fodder for the horse. So the horse may have, by association, felt the pain of the cab driver, cabman. So finally, when it is midnight or around that, everybody is asleep. But this old man gets up, goes to his horse, and then runs his hand, his fingers over the body, particularly in the region of the horse's neck, and then starts speaking to the horse as if speaking, because you know you can't speak to an animal. You speak to a man, you speak to a fellow human being. But he takes his horse as a human being. And because all human beings have behaved unhumanly, very crudely. So perhaps he has realized that humans are not humans. Maybe my horse can feel like a human, can respond to my impatience of sharing my pain, my grief, humanly. So in that hope he does, he tells. And he concludes asking the horse, suppose you had a child like me, within quotes, you had a young one of your own, and that young one left you so soon. How would you feel? You know, my buddy, 16, 17-year-old, so promising, and I had so much of hope on him that when I retired from this occupation, he would take care of the occupation and he would help me. But suddenly, time took him away from me. How would you feel? And perhaps this horse is much more than so-called educated human being. Much more what? Dramatically different. This horse responds with emotion, with all the sentiments, with all the affection, with all the sympathy for this old man. And the horse breathes over the palm of this old man. And the old man receives the meaning, breathing over warmth, and the old man feels the horse is very, very sad. The horse is sympathetic. And the horse can't speak, but it tells me through that breathing over my palm that I understand your pain. I think how much agonizing your pain is. And I know the courage. I know the will to live, the will not to surrender uh, to the devilish forces of life, to the torturing forces of life. You want to work, you go out, you continue working. So I praise you for your bravery, for your courage, and I sympathize with you because if I had a young one like you, and if that young one had left me as you left you, I would have been equally sad. I would have been equally in the hell of agony. So, my master, you don't think that in this Moscow city there is none. If not the humans, I am with you. I understand everything that goes through your mind. I I feel so sorry, so sorry, so sorry. Excuse me. I can't do anything. I can't get back good son. So this is what. So I wanted that this story should sensitize us. It has sensitized me, and I try to live according to the morals of this sensitization. After I read the story, understood Chekhov to some extent, and you as listeners, great listeners, respected listeners, I love you, and I understand that if you are powerful, you please don't be arrogant. Use your power positively. If you are poorest of the poor, you work hard and you go up through honesty, and you don't get violent. If you are middle class, I have I have sympathy for you that you are the most tolerant. You are not violent, and you are not arrogant, and you are the backbone of any hope for the future of humans. So you please try to be better and better and better. Try to have introspection at times. to be better, to be good, not to deviate. And the poorest of the poor, the downtrodden, you work hard. You don't go begging. You don't go asking for social welfare funds. You work hard. You believe in yourself. You can be much better, because this is how society moves on. Those who are poor, they become rich. And those who become rich through labor, through work, through honesty, they must be given credit. They must be respected. And those who are poor and become criminals and become rich, become politicians, become rich, no credit. Because your riches has no, you can say, no aroma, no fragrance of honesty. And therefore, this story teaches all of us that we should be good human beings, tolerant, sympathetic, not provoked by power, not, you can say, induced to be abusing our power. So whatever power we have, that is the power of God, that is the power of the Maker. He doesn't seem to be intervening all the time. He doesn't seem to be doing justice all the time. Sometimes we think that there's no God, but He is. He is. He's always there. And He sees the truth. He understands the truth. But He takes time doing justice, giving justice. That's all, my beloved friends, my respected listeners, and I love you all. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.